What is the scariest or creepiest theory that you know about? Story 1. The first man in space, some Russian cosmonaut whose name I can't remember, was not the true first. The actual first was a cosmonaut whose mission was unsuccessful, and he either died in orbit or on re-entry. Once it became apparent that he was doomed, the Russian authorities cut off communications, leaving him to die in isolation, and covered up the existence of the mission. Story 2. That all intelligent life kills itself. So the theory started out with the Fermi paradox. Basically, there are so many planets in the galaxy, let alone the entire universe, that it's statistically impossible that we're the only planet that developed intelligent life. So, where is everybody? Well, the secondary theory is that every intelligent species reaches the point where they have a technology that can kill their entire species, and that the vast majority end up killing themselves at that point. Those who survive this time in their history are so rare that we haven't found them and they haven't found us. As a species, we reached that point in our history with the discovery of nuclear weapons, and we're at the height of risk during the Cold War, at least thus far in our collective history. But there are various technologies that could bring a species to this point in their history. This would mean that while so far we've survived, that it's statistically unlikely that we're going to survive long term. Well, if the Great Filter is true, then we should start looking for signs of advanced alien civilizations that have perished. We might as well learn from their mistakes and avoid our own great filtering. It's an interesting theory, and I would say that there is a lot of evidence of future destruction to come. Whether or not our destiny is to destroy ourselves as a human race, that's hard to say for sure, but probably a big reset button is lurking out there somewhere. Story 3. The universe could be dying, and we'd have no way to know until we just suddenly vanish from existence. There could be sort of a quantum energy wave, can't remember what it's called because it's been so long since I read about it, 0-point collapse maybe, vacuum bubble burst, but whatever it is, it's an energy wave that starts at some point and spreads outward at the speed of light, annihilating any matter, energy, and even space-time in its path. Because the wave travels at the speed of light, it is invisible. We would have no way of seeing it coming because any light emitted by it would hit us at the exact same time that the wave itself hits us. So all of a sudden, the sun might just vanish from existence. We wouldn't notice because the sun's light from 8 minutes ago would still be reaching us, and then 8 minutes later, the Earth just vanishes from existence. No warning, no trace. Story 4. More of a story than a theory, but it correlates to some of these and makes me think that some could be real. When I was younger, I had this little stuffed animal dog that I named Rocky. One night, my younger sisters and I, who all slept in the same room so that we could hang out together, were messing around, and I handed over head-tossed Rocky into the wall directly in front of my bed. He hit the wall, slid down behind what was ever in front of my bed, and was never seen again. I immediately went to go get him, and he wasn't anywhere. We tore the whole entire room apart. We all saw the event occur, and over time, the room has been completely emptied out, everything in it rearranged, walls painted, everything, and no Rocky. He just completely phased out of existence. Makes me think that he glitched out of the system or something. Story 5. That humans almost went extinct. 70,000 years ago, a volcano in Indonesia erupted. Now, there's theories that we have a genetic bottleneck around that time. Took our population down to 10,000 to 3,000, like the size of a small town, and lots of fresh genetic material died with those who were lost, and the resulting inbreeding would have resulted in some genetic diseases that would have made their way into humans today. Now, without this event, we may have advanced faster and be healthier people today. It's fascinating to consider how a single event in history, such as a volcanic eruption, could have such a profound impact on the future of humanity. Like the genetic bottleneck hypothesis that you mentioned suggests that a significant reduction in the human population occurred around 70,000 years ago, which could have resulted in a loss of genetic diversity and the acclimation of harmful mutations through inbreeding. It's just crazy stuff. Story 6. May or may not be a theory, but the first thing that I thought of was feeling that you get when you're on top of a building and think, what if I jumped? Or when you're driving and think, what if I just swerve into traffic? Well, it's actually got a name. L'appel du vide, French for the call of the void. Sorry if I butchered the French. I always thought the idea of some ethereal presence calling you towards darkness, that's creepy. Story 7. The theory that there is an infinite number of parallel universes branching out at each moment with all possible outcomes for each situation. So let's say this is true, and you play Russian roulette. 5 out of 6 of possible yous would live and 1 would die, but no matter how many times you play, there would always be versions of you that would survive. This would give those versions of you the illusion of immortality. This would mean that no matter the risk that you would take, there would always be some version of you that would survive. Now, if this was true, it would mean that you could live your life completely free of fear of death and take on any risk. But the only way to know if this is true is to expose yourself to high odds of death repeatedly. Also, this would mean that as time passed, there would always be a more decrepit and invalid version of you surviving, maybe forever. Anyways, that or lizard people. Story 8. I had a professor in college who taught physics, and he explained why we will likely never come across aliens. The universe is about 14 billion years old. Over the course of that time, it's likely that intelligent life, besides life on Earth, has existed. However, 14 billion years is an insanely long time. Other life forms have probably risen and fallen thousands of times over. Extreme dynasties with technology that we can only dream of having have probably existed. Life forms could have lasted hundreds of thousands of years and still not even be close to our timeline. The chances of other intelligent life forms existing at the same time of humans in the 14 billion years that the universe has hosted a possibility for life, it's very unlikely. Statistically, intelligent life to have formed, prospered, or even existed at the same time as humans is extremely small, simply due to the absolute drop in a bucket that we are on the terms of time. We may very well be completely alone in the universe. Your professor's point of view is definitely an interesting one to consider. Like, it's true that the universe is incredibly vast and has been around for an unfathomable amount of time, and it's possible that there have been many intelligent civilizations that have risen and fallen over that time period. It's also possible that there are intelligent civilizations out there that are just simply too far away for us ever to come in contact with them. However, I don't think we can completely rule out the possibility of encountering alien life forms. Story 9. The Dark Forest Theory. This explains the Fermi paradox, why we haven't seen any other advanced life forms despite the vastness of the universe. Other advanced life forms don't send out signals into the rest of the universe because they're worried that something more advanced and dangerous is going to find them first. There's another idea that other civilizations know that there's something out there, but don't send any signals because there's no reason to not wipe out the entire planet. There's a science fiction book based on this, and I think the quote explains it better than I can. The universe is a dark forest. Every civilization is an armed hunter stalking through the trees like a ghost, gently pushing aside branches that block the path, and trying to tread without sound. Even breathing is done with care. The hunter has to be careful because everywhere in the forest are stealthy hunters like him. If he finds another life, another hunter, angel, or a demon, a delicate infant to tottering old man, a fairy or demigod, there's only one thing he can do: open fire and eliminate it. Story 10. The theory that basically asks if there's other intelligent life out there, why haven't we seen them? This means that if there really are aliens out there, and they've been there for centuries, why have none been conclusively spotted? Now, if you really think about it, there should be tons of alien evidence all around the visible universe if they have gotten to the point of interstellar travel. But there isn't, so that means something is stopping any advancement before it can get to that point. Essentially, there is a barrier that all other life has not been able to get past, which lies somewhere to the path of evolution and advancement. That barrier is most likely extinction. Humans are getting incredibly close to traveling beyond our home planet. With this theory in mind, the main concern is whether humans have not yet reached the barrier or if we are past it. If we have not reached it yet, then we are doomed to the same fate of other theoretical intelligent life. But if we are past it, we are lucky and may be able to travel the stars. In fact, we could very well be the first ones to make it, but we just don't know where the barrier is. Story 11. The theory of Rokus Basilisks. For those who don't know what this is, Rokus Basilisks is the idea of a future where an artificial intelligence is so advanced that it can determine which creatures do not try to bring the AI into existence sooner, even though they knew about potentially bringing the AI into existence. Any creature that knew about it but didn't help is to be killed as they tried to halt scientific expansion. The scary part about this is, if people make this, anyone reading this comment right now, as well as anyone else who knows about Rokus Basilisks, will die. Although many people may say, well, then no one should make it, problem solved. But someone may make it, so they aren't one of the people that didn't assist. Story 12. Telling this story makes me feel uncomfortable even today, so I will tell it here. I don't know how much this story fits into this thread, but I've never had a platform that seemed appropriate to share it, so here goes. When I was 20, 14 years ago, I moved from Iowa to Boulder, Colorado with my best friend Corey. We moved here during the month of August, and shortly thereafter I got a phone call from a number I didn't know. I answered it, and it turned out to be this girl that had attended the same high school as us, Ashley. Now, Ashley had heard that Corey and I had just moved to Boulder, and she was calling because she too had just moved to Boulder to attend CU. She wanted to know if we wanted to get together sometime and hang out or party. Now, Ashley was a couple of years younger than us, and we didn't run in the same crowds, so we didn't hang out much. But I remember her coming over to our apartment to smoke and chill once, and then I remember asking her to get us some plant, and she did. She came with us to a party once, and I also remember us asking her for a plant a second time, and her texting back saying, "You guys only message me when you want plants, so no." Now after that, I don't think we talked to her again. Fast forward 3 to 4 years. Corey and I are living back in Iowa, and one night, I was out with a couple of people and I'd gone to high school with, and we went out to this dive bar called Thumbs. In the back of Thumbs, there is a single pool table, which is where my group went because we planned on playing. We got to the pool table, and there's Ashley, racking a set of pool balls. I was super surprised to see her there, so I walked right up to her and said something like, "Ashley, long time no see. What are you doing here? Did you move back from Boulder?" Ashley just stared at me for a second and then said, "What?" So I repeat myself and say, "Did you move back here from Colorado? I haven't seen you since we hung out in Boulder." She looked truly confused, and then she said, what are you talking about? I never lived in Boulder. At this point, I thought she was messing with me because I specifically remembered hanging out with her more than once. So I laughed and was like, "You're messing with me, right?" She shook her head no, and one of the girls I was with, who knew both of us, actually overheard it and butted in to confirm that Ashley had lived in our hometown the whole time. I completely dropped the subject to save face, but the experience was so unsettling that I made a beeline for the front door. I walked out onto the sidewalk, pulled my phone out of my pocket, and called Corey. I said, "Corey, do you remember when we lived together in Boulder and Ashley came over and hung out with us?" And Corey said, "No, man, that never happened." Now, he was my best friend, so I knew he wasn't messing with me. Plus, there was a 0% chance that he and Ashley had ever talked to get something set up like this. When I pressed the issue, he insisted that no one that we had gone to high school with had ever moved out to Boulder, and that we certainly didn't hang out with them. Since then, I've brought this up to Corey several times, and his position has never changed. To this day, I don't know what happened. I specifically remember hanging out with her. She wore a tie-dye t-shirt when she came over for the first time, and we hung out with her multiple times. I remember it so clearly. I still have those memories, but apparently they never happened, even though the timeline matches exactly. She would have graduated high school that year and moved to Colorado in August for school. I know that the human memory is super unreliable, and I'm sure that that's all that this is, but that doesn't change that I am absolutely 100% sure that this happened. 14 years later, and I still stand by my story, wrong as it may be. Well, that's a bizarre experience. It's definitely unsettling to have memories that you're absolutely sure are real, but then other people don't seem to remember. Now, as you mentioned, human memory is notoriously unreliable, and it's possible that your brain may have created false memories without you realizing it. Our brains can sometimes fill in gaps in our memories, which imagine details, and especially if we're trying to recall events from a long time ago. However, it's also possible that something else entirely is going on, and it's hard to say for sure without more information. Regardless, it sounds like the experience has had a lasting impact on you, and it's completely understandable why it still makes you uncomfortable to think about. Story 13. Okay, this one is rough, so bear with me. So the common time travel question is, would you go back and kill baby Hitler? Well, imagine if that was you. To us, in the current timeline, you would be a hero that killed someone truly evil before they had a chance to corrupt or endanger anyone, but to the people of that time, you are a monster, a baby killer. They couldn't exactly explain to people, "Oh, I was sent from the future to kill this baby to save hundreds of millions of lives." No one would ever believe him and would just assume that he was some nutcase. Or maybe they're not allowed to tell anyone as per the agreement in the future government. It makes you wonder, all the people through time that have been called monsters for killing babies, what if they were just heroes from the future saving us all? They couldn't tell anyone either, right? Story 14. The Vela Incident, September 1979. A U.S. Vela satellite detected a double flash of light over an area of the ocean between South Africa and Antarctica. The prior 41 double flashes observed by the satellite were from nuclear explosions, as this is what they were designed to observe. There also happened to be a typhoon happening in the area at the time, so it seemed like someone wanted to detonate it without being caught. Now, the Carter administration reported that it was a natural occurrence due to a small meteorite hitting the satellite. However, many other independent sources, and even other countries, have reported that they did indeed find traces of fallout and radiation. Because of the geopolitical climate at the time, there's very strong evidence that this was in fact a joint nuclear weapon test carried out by South Africa and Israel, and the US scrubbed the information regarding it because they didn't want to paint their allies in Israel in a bad light for working with an apartheid-era South Africa. Strangely enough, Israel and South Africa have never denied having nuclear weapons programs, nor have they ever denied a joint test being responsible for the Vela Incident. The Vela Incident is certainly a fascinating and mysterious event, and the various theories and speculations surrounding it only add to its intrigue. Now, it's not uncommon for governments to cover up certain events or information for political or strategic reasons, so it's not impossible that the US government may have downplayed or even hidden the true nature of the Vela Incident. However, without concrete evidence, it's difficult to say with certainty what actually happened. Story 15. The last neuron in the brain can fire up to 72 hours after clinical death. What is classed as still being alive? Your heart stops or your brain activity stopping? As a nurse, this plays on my mind. I've always talked to the recently deceased as I would you usually. Hearing is the last sense to go anyway, so chances are people can still hear for a short period of time after death. I have to confirm death on a daily basis, so we check heart sounds, breathing, eye response, and pain response. But part of me knows that electrical activity is still going on in there. I'm a hospice nurse, and morbid thoughts are what I do best. Story 16. Not a theory, but a condition. Sometimes a pregnant woman's brain can just break. She begins to believe that her child isn't hers, or that it's a demon or an alien, and the worst part is that they are perfectly healthy people who were otherwise happy and well-adjusted beforehand. But when they get so far along in their pregnancy, the hormones can do something in their brain to change them completely. They become obsessed with the idea that their baby isn't theirs, is some foreign object invading their body. The idea that for some people the happiest time in their life can be a time of pain and madness for others, it's terrifying, especially since there's just no telling if or when it will happen. This is a real condition, I think called perinatal psychosis or postpartum psychosis. It is rare and a serious mental illness that can occur in women after giving birth or during pregnancy. It is estimated to affect 1 to 2 women per 1,000 births. The symptoms can be severe and include delusions, hallucinations, confusion, extreme mood swings, and thoughts of harming oneself or the baby. In the comments, has anyone witnessed firsthand some of the crazy effects a pregnancy can have on the mind?